quiet gays? Where are the quiet gays supposed to go?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lesbian Book Club, the podcast where we dive into the worlds of your favorite sapphic literature, one book at a time. I'm your host, Lauren Hogue. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And since this is our first episode, I just wanted to do a little bit of quick housekeeping. I wanted to let you know how each episode will be formatted, just so you know what's coming at you. Also, I know the audio isn't perfect. This is a one-woman show over here, so I promise that I'm learning and I will get better. In each episode, I'll be joined by a guest co-host. Sometimes this will be a friend, sometimes an author, sometimes both. And together we'll be exploring some of our favorite LGBTQ books, emphasis on the L. We'll also be picking some of our favorite characters from each book and guessing what their astrological sign will be. We'll be doing this towards the end of each episode. In that vein, I guess it's only right for me to share what my big three are. I'm a Capricorn sun, a Pisces moon, and an Aquarius rising. So that Pluto transit that's happening right now, it's really coming for my throat. And soon you'll be hearing from my friend and guest co-host for the next two episodes, Roxy Rivas. On this episode and the next, we'll be diving into one of the most popular lesbian books out there at the moment, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, written by the incredible Taylor Jenkins Reid. So without any further ado, let's get into the episode and welcome my fabulous guest co-host.
Hi everyone, my name is Roxy and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. My sun sign is Gemini, my moon is Capricorn, and my rising is Aquarius. And I'm really excited to dig right into it, but before we do, I was wondering if we can provide a little bit of context for it. What is this book? What is it about? Who are the main characters? And we're also going to be providing what we think is their astrological sign.
Yes, that'll be at the end, so stay tuned for that. We'll probably be profiling 3-4 characters at the end. Definitely our two main girls in this book. I would say that this book is probably very reminiscent of a Marilyn Monroe type actress who is now in her 70s or 80s, kind of coming to the end of her life and wants to a book about her life being just a megastar. And that's where our other character comes in, Monique. She's a writer at a magazine called Vivant.
We also have an intro character, Frankie, who is the editor at Vivant. The book opens up with Frankie receiving this really out-of-the-blue email from Evelyn Hugo's team and says, hey, we really want to do this story, but there's only one author, there's only one writer that we want to do this, and that is Monique. And Frankie is taken back by this, and it's like, whoa, why is this junior writer getting this like lifetime opportunity from someone that's like this big shot rock star? Like, they have this conversation. She tells her like, oh, well, they've read these pieces from you, and they say that because of that, they want you to be the writer. And then she says, I don't even think those pieces were that great. So I think that was a really interesting part.
Yeah, Monique doesn't seem to have a lot of self-confidence. She doesn't seem like this is a project that she feels qualified for. However, Evelyn has made it very clear that it's Monique or bust. So we fast forward to the day of meeting where Evelyn is going to meet Monique at her own house, and she's got a huge house. It's beautiful, as what you would think a superstar would have. And we also here meet Grace, who is Evelyn's assistant, who is very, very kind and kind of helps Frankie get at ease at Evelyn's.
Kind of helps Monique get at ease.
Also, the big elephant in the room for this first meeting for Monique, she thinks that the angle of her article is going to be like, who is the love of Evelyn's life? At this point, it's an article. That's what Frankie's been told. So she goes to try and figure out who's the love of your life, and Evelyn just does not answer that question.
She holds back. That's the only piece that she holds back on.
It's super interesting for somebody who has reached out to do an expose or something like that for themselves is going to be so, seems like she's going to not tell the full story until she gets a little bit more comfortable.
So this is also where Evelyn basically tells her, like, look, this is not an article, right? She like sits her down and she tells her, this is not an article. This isn't going to be something short. I actually want you to write a book.
They do this over salads, right?
Exactly. Right. They go out to lunch and they're having lunch, and like it almost feels like Monique wants to choke on the lettuce. Like she's like, what do you mean? Like There's a point where Monique basically tells her, like, I need to think about this. Like, I don't even know what to think about. Like, where do you think that came from? What do you think the hesitation was?
I think it came from insecurity because, which I think is unfounded. She's a writer at a magazine. Like, she's obviously has talent. I think it just comes from insecurity of her thinking, like, an entire book, I've never done that. I just really do see Monique as a kind of timid character who doesn't really, kind of the opposite of Evelyn Hugo in that doesn't take life by the reins. She doesn't go after the opportunity. She doesn't even know what she wants. And we'll find with Evelyn was always very clear on what she wanted and sometimes saw opportunities as roadblocks to that versus Monique seeing these opportunities as scary.
I kind of want to, something that you said really like made me think about it more. And I thought about it while I was reading this. It's like the polar opposite ends that these two characters are when they meet in terms of who they are as a person.
Yes.
But they're both women of color, right?
Yep.
And their approach to life. I think that's super important because Evelyn is basically, you know, in her 70s, 80s, but she grew up in an era where like women were told like, calladita te ves más bonita, like being quiet, keep all your thoughts to yourself, don't say anything. However, Evelyn was not like that. She was like, fuck that, throw that out the window. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it my way.
Yeah.
And Monique is like almost the polar opposite where she's like, I'm going to play by all the rules. I'm going to follow all of the steps to try to be the perfect version of whatever that is. Right. And she's like in this box, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like in a way, like Evelyn's like telling her like, no, like take your beauty, your uniqueness, everything and make it shine.
Yeah.
This is your opportunity.
Yeah, it does seem like Evelyn is probably going to teach Monique a lot through their interviews that they're going to then set up. I definitely agree. So we meet our first husband, Ernie Diaz. We actually meet Ernie in Hell's Kitchen, which is where Evelyn grew up. She grew up with her father, her mother. But her mother, I believe, dies at a younger age. Evelyn meets Ernie when she's 14 years old. She recognizes him immediately as a possible opportunity. She can see the way he looks at her. Evelyn has always been very beautiful. She developed early, which she is very aware of. And Ernie is definitely aware of it as well. So he's a little bit older. He's in his 20s. And she's again 14.
I know. Every time I think about it, I'm just like, oh, cringe. But at the same time, she, from a very young age, Evelyn just shows that she's like a force to be reckoned with.
So she marries Ernie. They move out to LA. This is where we see Evelyn and her relationship to sex, which is a big theme in this whole book. She talks about if the definition of enjoying sex means that it is pleasurable, then I've had a lot of sex that I didn't enjoy. But if we're defining it as being happy to have made the trade, then well, I haven't had much I hated. Very interesting take. But this is a hindsight take. This is her take when she's much, much older, looking back at her whole life. I wonder if she felt the same at the time making that trade, especially as like a 14-year-old. What do you think about that quote?
I think it really just gives us perspective into her philosophy of life. And I agree with you. I don't know what she was thinking when she was that age. This is all looking back. You can kind of get the sense that she's always been driven by the next thing, right? And so she's just going to do whatever it takes at that point.
Yeah. Ernie isn't the best guy. He's kind of dumb. He wants that typical wife who's going to put the dinner on the table at 5 and have babies and, you know, do the traditional things. This is the 40s. So she kind of acquiesces to that a lot of the time and then says like, oh, as long as I can do these duties of like a wife, is it okay if I take some acting classes and I'll pay for it myself? And she gets a little job at a diner that she was hanging out at, trying to score some star sightings. But the guy at the diner was very onto her and was like, well, if you're here, you might as well wait the tables. Yeah. So she does. She puts away some money. She gets to do some acting classes.
She's very intentional. She's very meticulous in her approach. And she actually gets parts or gets to play in some parts. And while she's doing this, we get introduced into other new characters, one of them being Harry. I love Harry. And I think that Harry like noticed her right away. Like because she stands out like anywhere she goes. And so Harry noticed her and was like, hey, you know, like, you're very beautiful, like always getting complimented. Harry takes her to a party, and then that's where we get introduced to Ari. And
Ari
Sullivan was like this hotshot in Hollywood, just like if you knew this guy, like you knew everybody.
Well, he was head of Sunset Studios.
Yes.
So he had a lot of pull in who got what parts, when and where, who, what someone looked like. Because right now, Evelyn has brown hair. She is Cuban. Mm-hmm. So she's got brown hair. She's got a little bit darker features. No butt, big boobs. And yeah, so Harry sees her. They go to this Hollywood party. Ari is there.
And Ari just like notices her like no other, right? Mm-hmm. Like just gets super infatuated with her.
A
16-year-old.
So Evelyn goes with Ari to his studio and ends up basically exchanging sex for parts, which we find is very, very common. We all know that now with the Me Too movement. We all know that women are often placed in positions to get parts that their dreams are reliant on who they sleep with. And that's really unfortunate. And we see it in this book, which is, books are social commentaries. And I think it's really sad. But Evelyn went for it. She did what she had to do. And she starts getting some parts.
I think there was a part where Ari is basically saying, like, this isn't the best part for her, but this is like one leg up from where she's at. And I think she recognizes that, and she's like, I'm going to knock this part out of the ballpark. Like, I'm going to do the best I can with what I have. And she does. And she keeps showing up, regardless of what she's doing to get these parts. She keeps showing up consistently. So there is a part where Ari brings up the fact that she's married. And he basically says, married chicks don't sell.
Yeah, you're not a hot item
you're not
available.
Yeah, and so I think that Evelyn really takes this to heart, and she's like, I need to fix this.
Yep.
Like, I need to be seemed the most available.
So Ernie is the first casualty to Evelyn. He's gone by the time she's 18. She thinks that he is doing well. He moved back to Hell's Kitchen, I believe. Had a wife and lots of babies. So that's most of the information we get from Ernie. Okay, on to husband number 2.
Then we have goddamn Don Adler. I just...
What to
say about this husband? What not to say?
This is probably the husband that we have the second most information on. First being Harry Cameron, which we'll get to. We've already met him. He's one of Evelyn's very best friends. Don Adler is probably the second longest chunk of the book because a lot happens.
I think one of the things that attracted her, not only his amazingly good looks, like he's a handsome hunk. I think for her, in comparison to Ernie, he's like the grand prize, right?
Yeah, he's Hollywood royalty.
And for our audience, like Hollywood royalty just means that he was, his parents are also famous. And so I think it's important that that's the context that he was raised in, because it really tells us a lot about who he is as a person. Which, by the way, I'm just going to say it, he's a shitty man.
He's horrible. That he has my first gut punch line in this book really took me by surprise. In hindsight, I shouldn't have been surprised. I mean, it's the 40s. Evelyn says, we were married for 2 months before he started hitting me. I had to shut the book. I was like, God damn it, because it seemed like that's probably why it's called Goddamn Don Adler. I got it.
There you go.
Okay. I shut the book. I did. I was so sad. It seemed like Evelyn was getting everything that she wanted, and it just went really downhill so fast, and it was worse than her first marriage.
Yeah. And I think even for her, it was a shock, right? I think that she was not expecting that from him at all. And I think that the reason why she stayed with him for so long was because she just didn't even know how to process any of it. I didn't close the book. I was pissed. I'm not going to lie. I was pissed because I'm like, how does this happen over and over and over again?
Yeah.
But for Evelyn, I felt bad. I felt like she's literally working her ass off, doing literally everything in her power to be successful. And then this guy just comes and just like hits her and makes her feel like the worst piece of shit there is on earth.
She also really tries to convince herself that it'll be all right. It was a one-time thing. Don did come back and apologize. So, I mean, there's something to be said about that. But She says, "No one had ever apologized for hitting me before. Maybe the life I thought I had wasn't so far away after all. Maybe this was all a mistake. Maybe it didn't mean anything and nothing had to change." So you can just hear her convincing herself like, oh man, I really did have everything. And maybe this doesn't have to be the end of it. Maybe it's going to be okay. And we see that it's not. He keeps hitting her over and over. She starts to have bruises.
On set.
Her coworkers find out.
There's a point where they literally go back to their trailer and he hits her there. Mm-hmm. And that to me is like, I mean, all of it was crossing many boundaries, but that was just like, you're literally hitting her in the workplace.
Mm-hmm. Like you're not
even trying to hide it. And it's like, she does all of this cover up makeup, all of these things. And even her makeup artist notices. Mm-hmm. And she still is trying to cover up for the lie. I don't even remember what lie she made up. She said she hit herself, like she fell and hit herself.
She fell into a table, which, I mean, common lie, but... However, something good that's going on in Evelyn's life at this point is she is making friends. She has a friend, Ruby Riley. She's another little starlet at Sunset Studios. She gets the part in Little Women, which is a part that she really, really wanted. It was going to be Academy Award contention. All sorts of big talk about this movie. It's really going to show her acting chops.
And I think it really shows tribute to who Evelyn is. Like, despite all of these negative things happening at home, she's still willing to go and be the best version of herself. Like, I think I've said that like 5 times already, but I'm just like, she's a badass. Like, she's literally like, screw all of these things that are happening to me. Like, I'm going to be successful regardless. There's nothing that's going to stop me from doing this.
So a main character we meet first time, Celia St. James. She's a young actress. She's younger than Evelyn. The very first thing that Evelyn says about her when she's introduced in the book is, "That teenage bitch is going to act me under the table." That's the very first thing we hear Evelyn say about Celia, which is quite interesting because Celia is a better actress, but the mean sentiment there, we'll see if that stays.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really stood out to me about Celia is that Celia, at least the way Evelyn describes her, is not really out here to compete. She's just out here to outdo everyone, you know, right? Like, she's just like that good. Yeah. And Celia catches it. She's very aware of it. She's very self-conscious about it, which is interesting because up until this point, we've seen her as a badass woman who cannot be stopped.
Yeah, she's scared.
And this is the only force that has been introduced that's like, oh, this is the first threat.
The last thing in that chapter where Celia's introduced is Evelyn saying Celia St. James is going to ruin everything.
Oh, it's so telling.
I know. The foreshadowing is pretty obvious here.
Oh my God, I
love it. Or maybe it's just obvious to us.
Right, because we've already read it. But it's okay, because at the same time, like, at this point, there's me, there's tension. And there's like, this can go in so many different ways. Yeah. But I was not expecting the way that it went, let me tell you right now.
No, I was like, maybe.
My lesbian little heart was like, oh, yes, please.
This is Lesbian Book Club, so we'll see what happens. Surprise, surprise. She starts to spend a lot of time with Celia. They start having just amazing talks. Evelyn says, intimacy is impossible without trust, and I don't think she trusted Dawn anymore. And I think she trusted Celia, and she was able to have that intimacy with her. She didn't want to go home, so she would spend time with Celia. She spent time with Ruby as well, but Celia and Evelyn really, really hit it off.
Also, just like small excerpt for Ruby. Like, Ruby was a really good friend. Like, during that whole situation, Ruby didn't know, like, because Evelyn never told her. Mm-hmm. But I think a part of her probably did know, but didn't want to believe it.
I believe that. Or she just didn't want to know. Right. Ruby also seems a little self-centered to me. Yeah. And she's like, well, if I know, then I'll have to get involved. Right. Or I'll have to say something. Or there'll be more expectations put on me. That's my little thing about Ruby. I think that
Evelyn was smart where she didn't say anything to her, because I feel like Evelyn was really smart about who she told certain things to, and she was very intentional. And for her, Ruby was just more of like, okay, this person can keep me distracted and keep me away from my husband as long as possible. Right. I can use her as be like, I'm going with Ruby to do this, or I'm going with Celia to do this. Mm-hmm. Dawn would not really think anything of it, right?
There was no threat there. There was no like, oh, you're just
with your homies.
Exactly.
With your homegirls.
With your homies. Yeah, that's good. Going back to intimacy, Evelyn says about Celia, intimacy is about truth. When you realize you can tell someone your truth, when you can show yourself to them, when you stand in front of them bare and their response is, you're safe with me, that's intimacy. That moment with Celia was the most intimate one I'd ever had with anyone. So I think Celia is also kind of the first person that Evelyn was able to share true intimacy with. And I don't think she'd ever experienced that. She definitely didn't get it from Ernie. He was not smart. And then Don, I don't think he had the capacity to even feel
his feelings.
Right.
Like, he's
so
just
I
like,
think,
no.
Yes, I think Celia ended up being that person for Evelyn. I believe they're talking about when did she see her bruises at one point?
Yes, at some point, Celia saw her bruises. I think she asked her without asking her. And then it just kind of, that's where they had that conversation.
Right. Let's talk about the disillusion of Dawn and Evelyn. Dawn's such a player. I mean, I think everyone in Hollywood, you have that much access.
Shit's bound to happen.
Right. So Dawn was a huge cheater.
Surprise, surprise.
So we cut to another Hollywood studio party. Evelyn finds out that Dawn is upstairs with a woman, but at the same time, she also is told by Ruby that people see Celia and her friendship in a weird light because Celia is seen or known to be romantically linked to women. So Evelyn finds these two facts out at the same time, and her first thought is she has to find Celia. She has to find Celia. She does not care that Dawn's cheating.
My first thought when all of this was happening and she's looking for her is like, wow, like that's a very interesting response. I don't know what to do with that. Yeah, it's a very interesting response. That's not a very straight girl response.
That's not a straight girl response at all.
But like I was like, oh, what is she gonna do? What's she gonna say? And then they meet up and they do so in a closet. Talk about like all of the freaking potential things, like all the signs and everything. Okay, so they're in the closet and Celia's like, oh, you know, like I really need to talk to you. And then Evelyn's like, I need to talk to you. Like, I just heard something about us and about you that I need to clarify, like, what is going on. And then Celia just tells her, like, yes, I am gay. And she says that she has feelings for her. And, you know, Evelyn is, like, taken back for so many reasons, right?
Yeah.
Because she has trust for this person. She has all these things, but she's like, wait, am I feeling the same way?
It made her think about it.
It made her process things a little bit different. And she was so taken back, but at the same time, she was so intrigued.
Here we cut to Monique and Evelyn in their interview. And Monique is not a dumb person. She's putting pieces together. And she then takes her question from the very beginning, like, oh, who is the love of your life? And she asks Evelyn again. And Evelyn just answers. She answers her flat out. She said it was Celia St. James. And she said she spent her entire life loving her. And that's kind of where that chapter ends. She does walk in.
With that line, first of all, I was just like, oh my God, I fucking can't.
I have a Sagittarius Venus and it still got me. I was like, oh, I would die. But
I was like, write that down. I need to use that one. I'm just kidding.
If you use it now, people will know.
I did write that line down, but I'm not going to use it until it's the right one. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, so they're in the closet, and in true fashion, Evelyn, who we'll get to her star sign, but there's a reason, kisses Celia. Just right there. She's like, let's just do this. Let's just figure it out. Evelyn, after the kiss, just leaves. She doesn't even say anything. She leaves the closet. She leaves the closet. She marches right upstairs. She finds the room Dawn is in. She opens it up. She sees very clearly what's going on. And she's like, I'm out, bro. Like, I'm done. We're no more. And she runs to Harry and she's like, take me home.
Also, big shout out to Harry, man. Like, that is such a good best friend.
Yeah.
We all need a Harry in our life. That's all I'm going to say. Like,
we'll talk about him at the end too with what star sign we think he is because we're in agreement on this one. We haven't talked much about Harry, but during this time with Dawn, I mean, he acts like what a real, true best friend would do. He wanted to kick Dawn's ass when he found out. He was ready to go to war for her. He really is a ride or die friend to Evelyn, and we'll see that throughout the book. But we got to mention Harry in this chapter because he really does come through for her.
In every single way. Like, he hears her out when she needs a shoulder to cry on and is just amazing. Like, he drives her home that night. He drives her home. He puts her to sleep. He like tucks her in. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, he was very worried about her safety and was like, come stay with me. Just really did be the person that she needed in that instance. He showed up. So Evelyn ends up leaving Dawn. She's recounting this tale to Monique, who's recording it for their interview. And Monique is actually pretty concerned about this divorce. It was somebody who Evelyn talked about loving and just having things inside her awaken that she had never experienced before. And Evelyn ends up saying to Monique, a heartbreak is lost, divorce is a piece of paper. And I think that quote right there really shows the deterioration of Dawn and Evelyn's relationship. Started off so beautiful and like a fairy tale, very much what Evelyn wanted. It was never going to be like that. And she did not understand that from the beginning, which is so sad. But she really does just see this as like a cutting of her losses. Divorce is a piece of paper. I'm not heartbroken. It doesn't feel like a loss to me. And she also starts up with Celia. So we'll see how that goes.
And I really want to just echo what that quote is also saying. And I think part of it is she's prefacing to what real loss is. Dawn was not it for her. The whole idea of love and what love can be was now getting redefined. It went from like this mountain of like what beauty views can look like to this like bigger mountain of what it can look like. So
something going along the lines with Evelyn being seen, because she thinks that Dawn sees her and then realizes that Celia really sees her. One of the first times that I think Evelyn realized that Celia saw her was when Celia called Evelyn calculating and awful. Evelyn really liked that. Evelyn was like, interesting. Like, you can see things in me that other people don't, because other people don't see her as calculating and awful. They see her as like going for the top, being like a trailblazer, doing all these great things, where a lot of that calculatedness really serves her. But in this very new relationship, friendship, situationship, whatever it is right now, Celia sees those things and calls Evelyn out. And I don't think Evelyn's ever been called out for her behavior before. So I thought that was really tantalizing for Evelyn. I thought that really fed into her relationship building with Celia as being able to recognize this person really does see me.
And I think what's really interesting about that is Celia had the playbook from the very beginning. She knew what she was messing with. In my eyes, I mean, we probably will fight over this, but I think she knew what she was getting herself into. And I am an Evelyn apologist. I will gladly stand here and be like, you know what? Evelyn never not showed her true colors, and Celia saw all of her true colors. So I just don't understand.
Sounds like it. Oh, this is gonna sound mean. I don't mean it like hard.
Okay, go
it
ahead.
sounds victim blaming.
I'm not blaming Celia. I think Celia loved her so much, so freaking much, that she was willing. Knowing what she knew, she was willing. And she understood what the sacrifices were.
We can't give too much away.
Okay, I'm just saying.
We have to go.
She said it, that quote that you read, oh shit, she knew. She saw it.
Okay, but when that quote was read, they were 19 and 21.
I mean, yeah, you're right. But at the same time, she read her well.
I agree. I think she did see her. I think opposites attract in a lot of ways. Sure. And Celia is the reason I'm a Celia apologist. She's so genuine. She's so authentic. She's so herself unapologetically. And I would say that Evelyn is not. I'll backtrack. I do think Evelyn is unapologetically herself. But I think a lot of all that Evelyn knows to be a part of herself is her success and her drive and her ambition. And Celia's starting to see her as a full human. And I think that's really scary for Evelyn.
Yeah.
And I think Celia was really well equipped. And I think that Evelyn had a big old wall up. And I don't think it's fair to say like, oh, just because Celia knew she was, not like her, that it was fine to treat her that way. And I don't think you're saying that. And we don't even know what we're talking about yet because we haven't gotten there in the story. But
I know. But look, okay, I'll leave it with this.
Okay.
I think that there was just like such rich chemistry between them two.
Yeah.
And because of the way Celia, as you just described her perfectly, I think because of that nature of hers, she was willing to go for it. Yeah. She knew what she was getting herself into. That's literally the point that I'm trying to make.
I don't think she could have foreseen all of the hurt that was coming her way.
I'm not saying that she could have literally had a roadmap of it, but I'm saying Evelyn has never not been Evelyn. That's it.
That's true.
That's it.
That's true. Okay.
Let's go on. Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. We'll hash this out later in the book.
Yeah.
Gullible Mick Riva. This man.
This man.
All of these
Who
men.
is this man?
Except for
I'm
Harry.
sorry for this man. I don't know.
I do not know this. I do not know this man. What do we have to say about him?
I hate him.
Oh,
I freaking hate him.
I think at the beginning of this chapter, we actually get a really beautiful glimpse into Celia and Evelyn's relationship. I mean, Evelyn's writing to her saying, "My dearest Cece, please never forget that the sun rises and sets with your smile. At least to me it does. You're the only thing on this planet worth worshiping." I mean, are you kidding me?
Jesus Christ, just like flip the table.
Write that down. Another thing, like a glimpse into the relationship, Evelyn, and this is all Evelyn talking because obviously Evelyn's recounting these things, but she says, "If you are intolerable, let me be the one to tolerate you." Like Evelyn, in all of her flaws and all of her things that end up happening after this, I do believe she really loved Celia. And I do like all the reassurance that Evelyn gives Celia. I feel like that might be maybe a character misalignment in the writing because I kind of see somebody who is so gung-ho in their own stuff wouldn't be the most reassuring partner. But it does seem like Evelyn had that with Celia, at least in the beginning. And because of their love, this whole plan with Mick Riva
unfolds.
What ends up happening is people get wind that Celia and Evelyn are spending a lot of time together. They're having sleepovers. They see the car parked outside of Evelyn's house all the time. So they start scheming. They start trying to come up. I mean, again, this is probably the 50s now. That's not okay. You can't be a lesbian in the 50s, especially if you're in the public eye. That's a no-go.
The plan is Evelyn's plan, first of all. Let's start there. The plan is she is going to marry this man, Mick Riva. By the way, this man is like a up-and-coming rising superstar. He's a really fantastic singer.
He's like an Elvis Presley type character.
Exactly.
That's how I pictured him.
He's like a nobody who's becoming a somebody really fast, really quick.
He also mentioned in the press that he was into Evelyn.
Then what happens?
Evelyn does not communicate fully her plans. Basically, their plan is this. Evelyn will marry Mick Rivas. It'll be this whole planned out thing in Vegas, and she's got to make sure he, knows that she wants him, but she's not going to have sex with him unless they're married. This is the part that was not communicated to Celia. This is my giant sticking point. I have two big sticking points with Evelyn, and this is one of them. Evelyn thinks that it's an unspoken assumption that if she marries this man, she's gonna sleep with him to protect their relationship from the press.
To protect the lie.
Yes, to protect the lie. She did not explicitly say that to Celia.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. So she does end up marrying Mick Rivas, and their plan is to get an annulment after that. But she does have sex with him on their wedding night. And she made it like really bad because then they could get an annulment. He wouldn't be so into her, whatever. And then there's fallout.
Again, this is a theme that will just keep happening is the withholding of information from Evelyn. And she's so...
From Celia.
Evelyn withholds information. Evelyn is so meticulous with how she approaches every single thing. She's playing a giant chess game the entire time.
Yep. Well, let's talk about how Celia finds out that Evelyn slept with Mick. This is my one of my gut punch lines. You want me to read it?
Yes, please.
So the plan is working. The press is eating it up. And Evelyn says it was working so goddamn beautifully until I found out I was pregnant.
At this point, Evelyn has to tell Celia. Like, she has to. There's no way she can't. And she basically tells her, I grabbed her arm and she pulled away. When I caught a glimpse of her face and saw the hurt in her eyes, I realized that Celia and I had never really been on the same page about what I was going to do with Mick Riva.
Ow! Ow! Could you imagine being Celia? Again, I just relate so much more with Celia and her personality and her character than I do with Evelyn. Because in my mind, I could never.
Look, I'm not saying... Okay, look, I'm just... I can relate to Celia the most out of this entire book.
Okay.
The reason why I defend Evelyn so much is because at the end of the day, she was trying to do it to protect her. She didn't do it with the intention of getting pregnant. I mean, I don't even know if condoms were the thing back then. Actually,
over intention.
Yes, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I wouldn't be pissed if I was Celia. Okay, I would be fucking livid, first of all. Like, my whole body would be enraged.
Mm-hmm.
But Evelyn Hugo was doing it for the both of them. And I think that her sacrifice...
Celia never asked her.
But it was still a sacrifice. Regardless of whether she asked her to or not, she was doing it to protect both of them.
Does it make it worse that Evelyn is bisexual and did not tell her female partner that she was going to go have sex with a man? Like, I think as a lesbian, I'll speak from my perspective. Okay. I think as a lesbian, it hurts most when your partner cheats on you with the opposite gender. And I'll tell you why. It hurts more because there is fundamentally something that you cannot do or be in order to be a man. Like, as a lesbian, you just can't. You can't be a man. You can't be a man, right? And you're not trying to be in any way. You're basically at this point trying to fulfill your partner in a way that you know how, and also that you feel like there's this ultimate connection. Yeah.
Right? But also seeing it from, I'm not a bisexual, so I don't want to speak on behalf of bisexuals, but I think also seeing it from Evelyn's perspective, she wasn't doing the sexual act.
Correct.
As loving Rick. Right. To her, it was a transaction that this transaction was going to protect me and my lover from the media. That was the transaction. I put myself in her shoes and was like, okay, remove the fact that I'm a lesbian. Remove the fact that, like, yes, this shit would have hurt the shit out of me if I was Celia, because it would have. Yeah. But if I was Evelyn and I was doing the ultimate sacrifice, doing the trade of sex for the comfort to live in with my partner, that's the ultimate sacrifice too.
But Evelyn didn't see it as a sacrifice. She did not view having sex with Mick as a sacrifice. It was just a little check. Celia values sex.
Oh, of course, yeah. That's the biggest disconnect for them too, because Celia, the sexual connection that she had with Evelyn was divine and sacred. Mm-hmm. Evelyn broke it.
She did.
Evelyn broke it. It's trust, right? Yes. Like, it's a trust thing.
It's that trust and that intimacy. And this is Celia's reaction saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live this way. I don't want to drive an awful brown car to your home so no one knows I'm here. I don't want to pretend I live by myself in Hollywood when I truly live here with you in this house. And I certainly don't want to love a woman who would screw some singer just so the world doesn't suspect that she loves me. You are a coward, and I can't believe I ever thought any different. You are a whore, Evelyn. You let men screw you for fame, and that is why I'm leaving you. And I think the not talking about it, not being transparent about this is my idea, and letting Celia have the opportunity to shut it down.
Well, this is where I think Evelyn was just very impulsive, and she always thought she was right.
Yeah. Ah, man.
Hey, look, people are probably going to hate me for being an Evelyn Hugo apologist, and it's okay. It's okay.
I think
okay, but I think that Celia was right in setting that boundary, and that was very smart of her. However, Evelyn did it with the intention of being able to live the life that they were currently living. That was the ultimate thing that she was trying to continue, right?
There's other ways to do it. There are better ways to do it.
There are better ways to do it, but this was the only way that she knew how.
I just see Celia as delicate.
Protect her at all costs.
Yes. I don't want to say delicate, but I want to say, listen, this woman said about Evelyn, she said, I loved you so much that I thought you were the meaning of my life. I thought that people were put on earth to find other people, and I was put here to find you and touch your skin and smell your breath and hear all your thoughts. But I don't think that's true anymore because I don't want to be meant for someone like you. To do that emotional torment to someone who thinks of you like this, how could you do that to them?
She didn't do it intentionally.
I don't care.
I'm not saying that she's perfect in any way, because she's not. And I think that's the whole point of this book, right? Yeah. It was this miscommunication. This whole book is giant miscommunication.
Yeah, or non-communication when there needed to be.
Yes. Evelyn just sees the world in this way and sees sex in this way and sees relationships in this way and sees marriage in this way, and clearly Celia doesn't. That's the biggest thing here. That's the biggest junction point. At this point in the book, Celia walks away for the first time.
And so let's talk about Evelyn and her pregnancy. She ends up going to Mexico. Harry takes her to get an abortion.
Again, rooting for Harry because he's the best.
And Harry is
oh my
there.
God, literally feeds her, like just checks in on her, does
I think he
everything.
stays with her.
He stays with her. Yeah.
And Evelyn this whole time is wishing that Celia was there. She says she desperately wanted Celia to call her, crying, telling her how wrong she'd been. Evelyn wants Celia to say that she's been wrong.
Yeah. This is also, like, side note, but this is also Dawn Adler gets engaged to Ruby, which is like another gut punch for Evelyn.
I just find it interesting for Evelyn's perspective as the one that did the harming to want Celia to be the one to A, apologize, and B, make that first move. I don't understand how Evelyn can think that that's how the situation should go.
I think because at that point she saw herself as the one who had gone through the worst end with the whole abortion thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason. I don't think it was that she doesn't agree with the fact that she fucked up. I think she actually recognizes that she fucked up.
I think that's the whole point of the book at the end. A lot of it is like she can see, which is nice that she can see that her actions were harmful, but it's almost like it's so late. It's so late.
Is it though? Is it?
Well, I guess I'll find out.
Yeah.